Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Two World Podcast. My name is Barney, and I have the honor of getting us started. And I'm here today with my co host, and he is.
Jacob.
And today we would like to take a little moment with all of you and look into a topic that probably resonates with most everyone here listening and watching along. And we thought we would think about the topic of pets today. I think that pets play a big role in a lot of people's lives in a number of ways, and in recent years, it's kind of branched out with the idea of animals in general as being therapeutic. I think, even I'm thinking of times where, kind of officially therapeutic, where you can spend time like in a safe setting, with a little guidance with certain types of animals, dogs or cats or even horses. Um, and then I'm thinking kind of more generally, more kind of off the cuff a bit, where sometimes you'll see on social media where someone says, "I'm feeling a little bit down today. Can I have some, you know, some pictures of pets, please?" And then that person's account kind of gets like little puppies and kittens and cats and pets doing really cute things, and you really think, wow, you know, um pets, these animals play a really big important part in our lives, and we go through a lot of emotions connected with owning pets and throughout their life. And I think when we sit down and think about it, pets really have a big impact on who we are at different stages in our lives. And there's probably even some kind of really key signposts, some kind of turning points in our lives where maybe because of a pet, we start to feel, we change our feelings, or if we feel one way or another. And it's probably that cause is directly related to a pet and something that happened in our lives or someone else's pet. And that really had an impact on us. And so I think that we hope you'll join us, because I think this has the possibility to be a real rich episode. And I don't know, do you have a good kind of general question? I can think of a ton, but do you have a question that you'd like to get us started with today, Jacob?
Yes, definitely. I was hoping that we could think of pets in relation to our life journeys. And so for me, that would start with questions around childhood. What were our earliest memories of
Hmm.
pets, and how did that kind of first form our understanding of what this little furry companion, if it's a dog or cat, or scaly companion, I guess, if it's a reptile, could
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
So I guess I kind of wanted us to think about what is the first pet that we remember having.
Hmm.
So if we could start there, that would be great. And I have a picture from my end, but do you have something on your end, or should I go first?
Yeah, actually, I'll start because I don't have a picture
Okay.
for these. Yeah. Um, yeah, actually, this kind of gets to what I was just saying a little bit ago. I didn't plan it this way, but I remember we had an Australian sheepdog that we had growing up, and it's maybe my first memory I have of a pet, but it was very, very gentle from what I have heard. And then one time I think that it wasn't, not intentionally from us, but like some people who were just, we weren't home at the time and it was outside, and some people kind of you know teased and tormented it a bit, and it really, the pet reacted to that, and then it became a little bit tough for the little kid, for us and my siblings to be around. It was okay with my dad, but it developed real trust issues from that. And then that kind of stuck with me. But then, in a way, then later when I was in kindergarten, um, my family decided to get a pet from a shelter, and the opposite. It was very small and very gentle and very calm. And then that kind of helped me to get over that feeling of unease about being around pets, about being around dogs. And it was funny that I had the chance to name the pet, and I don't know why I came up with the name Sally and Sue and ran it together for Sally Sue, but it really ended up being a real good name, and she lived for a real long time, and she was really treasured by all of us. But I remember her for being, kind of the first pet that I have a memory of, but also kind of like being like kind of helping me to see and have a broader, better view of pets and animals around the house at that time.
Wow, what a nuanced experience you had with your initial pets of seeing both the um, challenge of making sure that
Mm-hmm.
your pet is always in an environment that is healthy for it, and then seeing how if an animal that something that was out of your control, the way
Mm.
these neighbors treat it, but seeing how an animal, when it is put in that difficult situation, how it responds, and then you wanting to um, kind of uh, have a better experience for it and for you, and then with your next pet, it was different, but that's hard. That's actually a very
Mm-hmm.
challenging story. I'm sorry to
Mm-hmm.
hear that that
Mm-hmm.
happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
really. I Yeah, and the fact that it stuck with you too, it's left an impression, and probably
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely drove home the message that when you have a pet, you really want to make sure it's comfortable and happy, and yeah, to not anywhere near approximate what the negative
Yeah.
had been.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Yeah. Right.
yeah. So on our end, I had very good experiences with our first dog. We had a collie named Buddy, and I'm just going to share a picture of Buddy right here. He was a rough coat collie, and he had this beautiful black hair, and he was such a gentle dog with me as a
Mm.
child. And I could play around him, and he was just really easygoing. But then we'd take him on walks in the woods, and he would transform into this like fierce hunter, and he would go after groundhogs. And um, he was just a very interesting combination of things in a dog.
Uh-huh.
And I think
Uh-huh.
probably the reason my parents were drawn to get a collie was probably because of Lassie,
Oh, really?
the TV show. I'm
Mm-hmm.
guessing, and in our
Mm-hmm.
area, it was a very agricultural area.
Mm.
Collies were very popular dogs with farmers because they historically
Oh.
they were, known for protecting sheep and being good
Yeah.
shepherding dogs, and so um, and because of their disposition, they're largely very friendly um, to new people that they meet.
Yeah.
They may bark if somebody's on the property, but if somebody that same person were to approach them, their ears would go back and they'd have like this kind of warm demeanor, and then they would let the person pet them. So they were very favorable in our area at the time. Now it seems like the collie is a rare breed to find around.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially where I am here in Ohio. We have a collie today, and people are always like, "Oh my, you don't see those very often anymore." But anyway, this was Buddy, and we liked the collie so much that we ended up getting two more after Buddy
Oh,
passed away.
wow.
The
Oh.
one on the bottom of this picture is Cheyenne. He
Uh-huh.
was a male collie, and he was the consummate polar opposite of Buddy. Buddy was well, Cheyenne was very friendly like Buddy, but
Mm-hmm.
in terms of
Mm-hmm.
when we take him for walks in the woods, he was
Oh,
like a
yeah.
marshmallow. He didn't like pay attention to anything. Like a groundhog could run in front of him, like a foot in front of him, and he wouldn't do
Yeah.
anything. He
No.
and some he would get lost in the woods. Buddy was like able to find his way home no matter
Yeah, right.
what.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Cheyenne was this
Oh,
big
no.
marshmallow, and then after him, we got this girl collie. Actually, they
Mm-hmm.
were contemporaries. Her name was
Uh-huh.
Ginger, and she was more
Mm-hmm.
like Buddy. She had more instincts, but she was
Oh.
mentored since she was a puppy by Cheyenne. So some of his ways wore off on her. So
Right.
she
Oh, dear.
so she it kind of thwarted her development in terms of her
Oh,
hunter
dear. Yeah.
capacity. But anyway, but they had a lot of fun together, and I really had fun with them. So yeah,
Mm.
so the earliest pets that I can remember having were these collies. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just for our audio only listeners, um, Ginger and Cheyenne have the same coloring. They're rough coat collies with kind of a brownish tan
Mm-hmm.
coat
Mm-hmm.
with a highlight of white around their collar area. So yeah, I think collies are quite beautiful dogs, and so it's interesting, thinking about the first pets because like
Yeah.
you said, you can learn a lot either way, whether there were challenges or whether it went
Mm-hmm.
pretty smoothly. And so I think the big takeaways I had were just um, with our dogs to give them walks and time to have experiences outside of their their pens because we had these pens that they could run in, and they like that. They
Oh
they
yeah.
had plenty of space to run
Oh,
around,
okay.
but they would love it when we take them out for nature walks. And so the collie
Mhm.
that we have now, I take her out for 2 walks a day, and she just
Oh
really comes
yeah.
alive when she gets out for her to smell things and see things. And since we're in more in the city now, we're walking on sidewalks. She will greet people when they come by and just loves that because they're very
Oh,
social.
oh
So,
yeah.
so it's
Mm.
interesting. Those early lessons still are valuable now. And um, so so Lassie kind of inspired our family to choose our first dogs. Do you know of any factors that led your family to choose the particular pets that they did, or was it more chance, like with the rescue that just happened to be
Right.
a dog that needed a home at the time? And um,
Yeah. I, I don't have a picture of this dog either, but I know that my mom, for years and years, maybe even since she was young, she always wanted a golden retriever. And I'm not sure how she found out, if it was through a connection at her work or a friend in a different way, but she heard of a family who they were they were breeding golden retrievers, not seriously, but just occasionally they'd have a litter and then they would sell them, and then they thought that they were done with that, and then um, their two kids accidentally let the golden retrievers back in the area together, and then they had an unexpected litter again. So then
oh,
they had these puppies um, that they wanted to find homes for, and then we happened to get Chelsea, which I thought was such a nice name. I really liked that name, and she was just so much fun to have because it was pretty different to from Sally Sue, who was a smaller dog and a different a mix of a few different breeds. And she was curious and inquisitive, but she was so small that she wasn't so playful, in a way. And then to have this golden retriever that was very playful and very active and very social and loving to be around people. And um so much so that like we kind of changed the rules for pets at our house a little bit. So you know I think it used to be that pets would stay outside, um at nighttime, and then they would have some time in the house occasionally, um but then they were pretty much for outside. But then when Chelsea came along, it really switched things around, where she spent a lot of time in the house. And she was so good. She would let us know when she needed to go out. And then she, of course, we grew up in an agriculture area too, with lots of land and lots of freedom for her. And we never really had to worry about how she was doing or what she was doing. And one neat, quirky thing that she had, and I'm curious to hear about some of the quirks of your other dogs or pets as well, is she could always pick a ripe tomato. You know, yeah,
oh,
I like, so like dogs especially are known for being colorblind and having not having a wide spectrum of being able to see colors, but there must just be some smell to the ripe tomatoes. And my dad always having a big garden,
yes,
she would just help herself. She would just walk in and pick one off the vine and chomp it up, and happy as can
wow,
be.
that's amazing. What a
Mhm.
special talent. I love that.
Yeah, right.
Oh my, that's so good.
Hmm.
Um, well, I had mentioned to you about how Buddy was one of his
Yeah.
qualities was his hunting
Hmm.
ability, but
Hmm.
Cheyenne had this very funny quirk that sometimes he'd fall over when he was standing up peeing. I've never seen
Really?
a dog do this.
Oh,
He like
on
loses
on just
balance.
three legs is just not quite enough to keep me up here.
It didn't happen necessarily every day, but it was frequent enough that it was a quirk. It's like there's Cheyenne. He's falling over. Oh my. And if I can switch it up a bit, to
Yeah.
another childhood pet, at this time instead
Hmm.
of a furry friend, it's a feathery
Uh-huh.
friend.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I'm going to share a picture of one of the birds that we had, Coconut. Uh, and he loved to sit on my head. We'd take him out of the cage, and
Uh-huh.
he'd work his way, like if you had him on your hand, he'd work his way up my
Uh-huh.
arm and sit on my shoulder a
Uh-huh.
while. And then
Uh-huh.
he sometimes would fly or find a way, just he'd get on my
Mm,
head and love that.
mm-hmm.
And we had him for so long.
Mm.
He lived into my college years. So
Wow, really?
my
Wow.
parents, thank goodness for their long-suffering dedication, while I was off at college, learning and doing
Exactly,
stuff,
yeah.
they were
Mm-hmm.
taking good care of Coconut.
Mm-hmm.
But he had this, if he would get startled, it sounded like a car alarm type of chirp. He'd go, and I remember he used to get up early in the morning, and it'd be like
Oh no.
Saturday morning, and my
Oh man.
sister loved to sleep in. I'd get up early to
Oh
watch
yeah. Oh
cartoons, but she
yeah.
loved to sleep in,
It's
and he'd be
and yeah.
he'd be like getting excited because he was like a morning riser, and he'd be like, and my sister would be like, she would come, like, open her door
Oh
and be
yeah.
like, "Be quiet, Coconut," and then Coconut would get started and go, like the car alarm was going off. Oh my. So yeah, pets can be this tremendous source of joy, and at times for some in the
Oh,
family annoyance, right?
aggravation. Yeah, right. Yeah, really. Yeah.
But he was such a distinct and fun little being to have around our family for many years. So that was
Do
Coconut.
do you remember kind of your first reaction to when he hopped on your head?
I
How?
liked it. Except
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
his claws did feel a little bit pokey on my
Yeah,
on
I'm
my
sure.
on
I'm
my
sure.
skin. So I'd be like,
I'm
"Oh,
sure.
ow, ah." But then I was
Oh,
like, "Oh, he's up there." And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh, can you take a picture of it?" And they're like,
this is
"Sure." So
kind
that
of
this is
cool.
one of
Yeah.
those examples of,
Uh-huh.
yeah, when we got that picture taken. But yeah. And recently one of our family friends, Julie Long's sister, Christy,
Hmm.
got a
Hmm.
cockatiel. And so it was
Hmm.
kind of fun to be around one again after all these years. And I tried all my
Mm,
tricks that I
hmm.
learned from
Hmm.
Coconut, the way I would chirp and like talk to him. And her cockatiels seem to respond pretty well to those things
Oh,
still.
that's
So
nice. Yeah,
some of
right. Yeah,
those
there's
skills
some,
or
it's
muscle memory, I
ingrained.
guess,
Yeah.
yeah, still work. So yeah,
Hmm.
so that's kind of fun. Yeah.
Mm, hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what, Barney, I was going to transition to another question, but before
Yeah.
I do, I'm just going to share a picture. I actually have a picture with Christie's bird if you want to
Oh,
see it.
cool. Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Just
Yeah.
this many years later. So let's see. That's what her bird looks like.
Ah,
So a little
on the
different
shoulder.
coloring than coconut.
Uh-huh.
So yeah,
Yeah.
if I now her bird for our audio only listeners is sitting on my shoulder,
Yeah,
but
right.
if I
Yeah.
go back to the picture of coconut sitting on my
Uh-huh.
head, you'll see that coconut had more of a yellow coloring for
Uh-huh.
his
Uh-huh.
head
Uh-huh.
and a
Uh-huh.
big like orange disc beside each of his
Oh,
ears,
yeah.
and then a
Oh,
gray
wow.
body and white highlights on his
Mm-hmm.
feathers. Whereas Christie's
Mm-hmm.
bird is more white and gray all over its
Yeah,
body and head.
right.
So just different
Yeah.
coloring, but
Yeah.
some similar experiences. So yeah. Oh my. Um,
Yeah.
what about cats, Barney? Did you have any cats growing up?
We did. Yeah, we definitely did. And we had a tortoise shell
Oh,
calico cat that we loved that was Misha, and I don't know how we got that name, but she was well beloved. But the cats, I think, because myself for sure, and then my brother, I think also were allergic to cats, so they really
ah,
stayed outside. But then, and then they were so helpful in the barn, of course, to keep the rodent population down. And my sister was a big cat person, and this is kind of an interesting story that we have that her boyfriend at the time, who then became her husband, gave her two cats, and they, and also the case where, when she went back to college, they met in college. So when she went back to college, then they stayed at our house and we cared for them. But then just one day, I think it was maybe summer or winter, one of the cats just disappeared and we couldn't find her for ages, and then we thought, well, because of the place that we live, maybe just something happened to her. And it was probably a good 5, 8 years, maybe it's as long as that later. Then my dad said one day, said I was walking down the road and I saw this white cat in this field, and he was real cautious and careful and slowly walked to it, and it was that cat
Oh,
that got
wow.
that never came home again.
Amazing.
And he, took food out to her and got her calmed down and brought her home, and then she stayed home with at the house with
Wow.
them
That's
for the
incredible.
rest of her life. Yeah.
I've never
Um,
heard of a story like that. That's
no.
amazing.
Uh-huh. And she was just, half a mile down the road, but what had she been up to during those times? But then she was happy again to come home and stayed with us the rest of the time then. But and then my parents have a cat now that's also they got from the shelter, and then it stays in and out, but it prefers this cat herself actually prefers being outside,
Okay.
probably for the same reason of there's enough fun things to do outside.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And but yeah, again, if I spend time when I'm home and like I sit on the floor, then I start sneezing, getting ready, runny
Oh,
nose and itchy eyes again. But yeah, but lately, as long as I'm careful, I don't notice anything. But and then if I visit people's like in if I visit your house, I don't have any trouble. But
yes. Okay, good.
mhm.
Oh, that's interesting. And then does your dad's cat get along well with his dog Coco?
Yeah, they get along okay at times.
Okay,
It's
good.
funny that the cat has taken over. Like my parents tried to have like a bed that is Coco's bed, um,
Okay.
but she didn't really want to use it anyway. And then so that the cat
Ah,
like uses it, and the cat like it's like, well, it's mine now. If no one's using it, can I use it? But occasionally, then Coco will like be walking around and be like, I wonder if maybe that really is mine. And then like kind of tries to chase her away from it. And then they
oh,
have a little bit of a tussle at that
okay.
time. But otherwise they're just like, you're there and I'm here. And, probably Coco probably feels, hey, look at me. I get to sit on, grandpa's chair,
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't, so you can have that little bit. I don't mind most of the
Yeah.
time, you know.
Oh, that's interesting.
Hmm.
Well, I think it would be kind of fun to talk a little bit about um, dogs versus cats and our
Hmm.
preferences, and has that changed over the years? I definitely started out
Hmm.
as a dog person,
Right.
and really had very few experiences with cats until I was an adult. And
Mm.
then as I had more experiences with cats, I grew to appreciate them more. If you pressed me, I'd definitely probably still say I'm a dog person, but I've
Mhm.
really grown to love cats a
Oh
lot,
yeah.
almost tipping the scales, but not quite.
Oh
Um,
dear.
but but I wanted to share and then I want to ask you your thoughts. But real quickly, if I
Yeah.
could share just my first experience with a cat,
Oh
was
yeah.
with a cat that my grandmother rescued, and I have a picture of
Oh.
her. Interestingly enough, her name was Kitty.
It
And
works.
this
Yeah.
cat loved one person,
Oh.
and
Oh.
that was my grandma. Like,
Uh-huh.
because it trusted her, because when she found it, it had a collar on, and one of its
Hmm.
legs was caught up in the
Oh
collar,
no.
and so it was
Oh
moving
yeah.
around with
Mm,
three
mm,
legs,
mm,
and it
mm,
was
mm, mm,
really struggling. And so
mm,
she was able to get it calmed down enough to bring it
mm-hmm,
inside, and then
mm-hmm.
she cut the collar off and fed it and cared for that cat, and it just loved her and was very
Oh
um,
yeah.
comfortable around her. But for guests and other family members, it was very
Mm,
skittish and at
mm.
times might hiss. But then, and you see in this picture, she has kind of a
Yeah.
largely gray coloring with some
Yeah.
other splotches
Mm.
of color mixed in. But
Mm-hmm.
she had her moments when she would calm down enough to you could take a picture of her. And after
Mm-hmm.
my grandma's passing, she acclimated to my parents, and they
Oh,
took care of her.
oh,
And
good.
she
Uh-huh.
moved from my grandmother's house over to we lived next door to my grandmother, and so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we started having her out living out in the garage with like a heater and
Mm-hmm.
heating area. And so yeah, and then she got used to my parents more, but this was our first experience to a cat. And so, as you can probably tell from what I've said, she wasn't real comfortable around people. So I my impression of
Yeah.
cats was that they were
Oh,
standoffish
yeah.
or didn't
Right.
like to be interacted with. And so it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
until later in life that I came around cats that were super friendly and liked to be held and pet. And so that really changed my perspective. And so maybe uh, that could be a little bit of my answer to the cats versus dogs question. And how about for you?
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess before I talk about myself, but it's because I kind of, well, I guess I can relate to that very much. So like, um, my first experience with cats was just that, they were in the barn and then, or outside. And then when I would be outside too, like they would, weave in between your legs and, that was nice and bend down and pet them a little bit. But then, I've got my thing to do and they have their thing to do. But um, yeah, and then it's true too. Like I know when I went to Sean's house, he would say, we have two cats, but one of them you'll never see.
Mm,
Like kind of that that feeling that, the cat isn't really comfortable around other people, or for some reason, just likes to be alone and doesn't want to be bothered, maybe or whatever the reason is. But and then I saw that cats really seem to have this unique personality to probably like each cat. It's hard to say that like you ever find cats that act the same, for the most part. But it's kind of easy to see, you can find some dogs, that have a lot of, within the same breed will have a lot of similar personality type, traits. Um, so I had maybe a respect for cats in that way. But and yeah, it was, the times when I would sit down and pet a cat on my lap and have it purr, or its rough tongue, lick your hand, that's neat. But at the end of the day, um, for sure, I would choose dogs, and that's because of one wonderful dog that we had in our life, and that was Calvin. And I can just share a few photos of him that so kind of one thing that was quirky about him is that he when he drank water, he made the loudest slurping noise. And then also he always seemed to be thirsty, so he could find water anywhere. Like this is a wheelbarrow, and then there's like a flower pot in there that had collected rainwater, and he's
Oh,
like, "Oh wow, you know what? I'm thirsty." And then like he just starts slurping, away. And he was
oh,
also very clever and very tricky. Like if we tried to put up any kind of barrier to keep him away, he could find a way through that. And
oh.
because he wanted to be with us so much with whatever we were doing. And I felt a real strong connection to him because so after Chelsea passed away, and my parents had a little bit of a time without a pet. And then my oldest brother thought, it was we were all home for Christmas season, and he thought, maybe now would be a good time to get our parents another dog. And then I said, trying to be the voice of reason, I said, I don't know, guys, isn't it a little bit, early and a little bit too soon, and we don't even know if they want another pet. Maybe they'll be okay without having a dog to take care of it. And nobody listened to me. And then we went to the place that ad that we saw. It wasn't so far away from our house even, and then they had, maybe 4 or 5 of these yellow lab puppies. So Calvin, the picture I
Oh,
showed is a yellow lab, and we thought maybe another girl because Chelsea was a girl, but the girl that they had wasn't, she was pretty laid back, but there was one dog there, one puppy that was very energetic, and we chose that one, and that was Calvin. And then we I thought we took him home and surprised my parents. I remember my dad said, "Oh boy," when, when he saw their their Christmas present. And I think my mom probably said, "Oh my,"
oh,
And then I thought, this poor puppy, he's probably lonely. He was so excited to be around his siblings, and and now he's all by himself again. So I got a sleeping bag and put it down by the wood burning stove that night, and he slept on my hair,
Oh.
that night, and it's what seemed to have a calming effect for him, and then he and I formed a real strong bond that day, I think,
Oh,
and
wow.
he's still on my the background on my phone that my sister-in-law, my oldest brother's wife, she happened to take this real nice photo of him that I'll share, and she posted it on her blog
Oh,
at the time of
that's
just
a
Calvin, sitting.
amazing photo. That could be on a
Yeah.
calendar. Wow.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Just out on the side porch out front of the house. And then I wanted to keep that. But I wanted to have some of my favorite Bible verses on there. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
they're a little bit hard to read, but I edited it and put, oh, it's even a little bit hard to read now, to get them. But things that, words from the Bible that really meant something to me that I wanted to keep in front of me. And so but I didn't want to lose Calvin. And then
Yes.
so I put those on there. I think I changed the text since, so that's a little bit easier for me to read than what it was on those. But um, even now he's on my phone. He has since
Oh,
passed away. I think he passed away maybe in 2008 or nine even. And then when I found out about that, that was a little bit tough. And then it was maybe in October or November. And then so I actually went home that Christmas. I had to go home to see, to have a little bit of closure. And because he was such a personable dog. He meant a lot
mm.
to all of us, I think.
I had the good fortune of meeting him when I visited your
Yeah.
parents, and he
Uh-huh.
he truly was incredible, even as just a guest coming into the home for a few minutes. He was very friendly and, wanted to greet me, and yeah, a delight. I liked Calvin too.
Hmm, hmm, hmm,
Wow, that's amazing, Barney. Well,
hmm.
thanks for sharing that. I think you're forever a dog person.
I
I
imagine.
mean, nothing
Yeah.
against any other type of pet, but once you have
No, no,
experience
no,
like
no.
that, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
um, well, I want to make a connection with something that you said earlier, and that was about your mom's interest in having a golden retriever, which I think
Hmm.
golden retrievers are similar in temperament to labs.
Hmm, hmm,
Calvin was a
hmm,
lab, but
hmm.
so in particular, I want to think a little bit about how pets um, kind of have this impact on family dynamics, or they can.
Oh
They
yeah.
can be
Hmm,
like a central hub in a sense of
hmm.
bringing parents and children together for unique experiences, and or if the family's just doing something fun, the pet gets in the mix and enhances it. And so I have a series of photos of golden retrievers throughout the emergence from my childhood into adulthood that was the subtle theme of like golden retrievers
Oh.
are awesome and look at them at family events and how they seem to enhance those. And so
Uh-huh.
that's the theme of these next few pictures here. So
Okay.
so um so I have a picture when I was in high school we had a family reunion, and this picture is very pixelated. It's hard to see,
Hmm.
but
Oh,
in the
okay, okay.
lower left of the picture there's this golden retriever named Bailey
Uh-huh. Okay.
that our my uncle George brought, and every family reunion or time they visited, they'd bring Bailey. And our collies didn't know what to make of her because she was this ball of energy. And she would go in the pen
Oh.
with them and they'd play, and she'd run and run and run. And our collies would get tired. It was just like they just didn't know what to do with her exuberance. But she was so much fun. We had a pool. She loved water, and she would get right
Oh
up next to
yeah.
that water and want
Oh,
to play.
oh
Our
wow.
collies did not want to get near that water, let me
Oh
tell you.
really?
Yeah, we'd give them
Mm.
baths a few times a year, and they
Hmm.
really just had enough of that just from the baths. They didn't want anything to do with the pool. But Bailey would come, and then we could go out and get a frisbee and go out in the yard,
Oh
and
wow.
it was like the family event was enhanced by the presence of this enthusiast,
Mm,
that was
mm.
just so excited about everything, so energetic, like just in bringing everything up to like level 10 of enjoyment. And then, you know, that was my first experience with a golden. I thought, oh, those are amazing dogs.
Mm,
And
hmm.
then when I met my wife, Katie, back when we first started dating, and I visited her family, they had a golden retriever,
Okay.
Chloe. who
Mm.
is just delightful. Here's a picture of her sleeping. You
Oh
can see
yeah.
she's a little bit older because she's
Oh
white in the
yeah, yeah.
face, but
Uh-huh,
otherwise
uh-huh,
her
uh-huh.
coat is like this golden brown
Mm,
color. She was
mm-hmm,
very
mm-hmm.
friendly and loved. And for years they had had German Shepherds, and
Oh,
then they switched it up and had a golden. And it was a similar
oh
thing
yeah.
of
Oh,
going from like collies to goldens, like
yeah,
a
yeah,
dog
yeah,
that's
yeah.
like more serious and more of a working dog to
Mm-hmm.
like the golden, which is
Oh yeah.
exuberant and very social. And so yeah,
Yeah.
there was Chloe, and we'd have birthday parties for Micah when he was little, and she would get in the mix. And when he had family events, she was right there. And so the trend continued. And then little Micah, he grew
Oh
up
wow.
um, next to Chloe here in this picture. We for a season we lived there in Defiance with Katie's
Mm.
family, and and there's Chloe next to Micah, and and then we knew
Oh
at
wow.
some point when it was time for us to get a dog that we wanted to get a golden ourselves, and so
Oh
here's
yeah.
the golden that we ended up getting, Lemmy,
Oh.
as a puppy.
Oh yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
Before we even went to pick him up, this is a picture of him that the breeder posted. And then
Mm.
here he is after we
Oh.
brought him home, and he's all grown up, and that's Hannah hugging him. So
Oh wow.
he was a
Oh.
tremendous dog that brought so much joy to our family, and that's
Mm.
Aubrey hugging him. And
Mm.
I have so many pictures of our kids hugging him at every family event, and his coloring is a little bit more. There's almost a reddish tint to
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
golden
Mm-hmm.
brown that he has, and he was just a true delight. He lived in that home in Orville for a number of years that your parents rented
Oh
to us
yeah.
that had been your grandparents' home,
Uh-huh.
and then he moved with us to Worcester, and
Mm-hmm.
he just passed away um, in the summer of 2023. So we had him
Mm.
13 years,
Mm. Oh
and
wow.
those were wonderful years. And he was
Oh yeah.
another one of those pets that you always remember. He's a favorite
Mm.
dog that Katie and I have ever had, and
Oh yeah.
the reason why we'll forever be dog people too. But
Oh
I
yeah.
love this picture of
Oh
him where
wow.
he
That's
it
really
almost looks
nice.
like he's smiling. The
Oh,
way
for
his
sure.
mouth comes up in the edge and his
Mm-hmm.
eyes are just
Mm-hmm.
so gleaming there with delight.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he was a real joy. And then we had talking about emerging into adulthood, um, we loved this dog, Lemmy, and we
Mm.
thought, okay, let's broaden the family some more. And I thought, well, I had collies growing up. What if we
Oh
just got
yeah.
a little collie puppy to introduce to Lemmy? And wouldn't that be fun? Like the dog from my childhood mixed with the dog
Uh-huh.
from my adulthood. So we got
Oh, oh
this
yeah.
little puppy. This is
Oh,
JoJo when she
so
was just
beautiful.
wee little. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
real pretty. Same
Mm.
coloring as the
Yeah.
other collies that we had, Cheyenne and Ginger, the
Right.
the brown coat and the white around the collar and then the front legs. Um and this is JoJo when we brought her home and Aubrey hugging her. And JoJo here with Katie holding
Oh
her,
yeah.
and Hannah out for a walk
Oh.
when JoJo's grown and her hair
Oh
is
yeah.
long.
Mm.
And JoJo had so much fun with Lemmy. They would play and they would do things together and just would have a great time. And JoJo loves to be with her family, and
Oh
for
yeah.
events, she'll watch what we're doing and loves to be right there.
Mm.
But one thing I didn't realize, and I'll just say this about collies, and I growing up, we'd had them outdoors in a pen. And
Oh
when you
yeah,
bring
right,
them
yeah.
into the house as a working dog, they're always on the
Oh,
move, looking for something to
uh-huh.
do. They want to help
Uh-huh.
you
Uh-huh.
out. They want to
Right, right,
they
right,
want to
right, right.
contribute. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a stark contrast to Lemmy, who would lie down and take naps, and just he was the
Yeah,
essence
that's
of
right. Yeah.
relaxation, and
Uh-huh.
abiding. And so we didn't realize, like, bringing JoJo into the mix, she would add another element of stress, because like you're sitting on the couch reading, and this dog's pacing around in front of you over
Mm-hmm.
and over again,
Mm-hmm.
like what can I do now? What can I do now? What can I do now?
Is there
So
anything
so
that you have for me to do, by the
so
way?
for any of our listeners out there, if you're considering getting an inside dog, just throwing this out there is my 2 cents worth. Collies are fantastic dogs for outdoor dogs, but I would not recommend getting a full collie for as an indoor dog. That's just my own 2 cents worth. Unless if you have a
Yeah.
lot of tasks for them to do, which I don't know what that would
Yeah,
be in
I
a
know
house.
what they can do, but if you've got that idea, then
Yeah.
maybe yeah. But otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because every so often this happens in our lives where I'll tell Katie, "Oh, I did such and such thing when I was younger and it was
Hmm.
amazing." And I
Hmm.
kind of have a selective memory, or I have rose-colored glasses, or I don't remember all of
Sure,
that
sure,
that
sure.
entails. And this
Hmm.
was another one of those cases where we got this collie, and and I like we love her.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad she's in our lives, but it was just the part of the story that I hadn't remembered. So it's like, what? We didn't know we were going to get this working dog who's pacing all the time, and but any but it's okay. It's all good. So
And it would be hard to anticipate that because it's hard to think that what happens if I kind of not drastically, but kind of, well, maybe drastically change the environment that this dog is in because you're not thinking that it's the environment that made the dog, so wonderful to be around when you were little. The fact that those dogs were primarily outside, and you wouldn't think that because you would think it's the collie, it's the type of dog that they were that made them so wonderful. You wouldn't realize that there's that one extra factor of where they're spending their time that would change things like that. But
that's really true. Thanks, Barney. That makes me feel better.
mhm.
I feel a little bit
Of
less
course,
foolish about that whole decision.
no.
But one thing I will say is because JoJo has the personality that she does,
Mhm.
she's taught me structure and regularity because I'm a very
Oh,
spontaneous person, and I
uh-huh.
tend my routine isn't necessarily set with such
Hmm.
fixed
Oh yeah.
regularity. So
Hmm.
so Lemmy, we would let him out, and he would at various times of day when he needed to go out, and he would do his business in the backyard and come back in.
Hmm.
Jojo needs to be like out of the house at the same time every day for the
Oh.
same longevity, and she will use the restroom and do all those things what in the regularity of her walk routine. She
Oh
will
wow.
not. It is
Oh
like almost
wow.
impossible for her to just it like we used to have a zip line in the
Yeah.
back, and
Yeah.
we would put her on that, and I think, okay,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
she would use the restroom when she's out there and run around a bit. Nope.
Uh-huh.
That did not work. She would not. She'd only use the restroom when I take her on walks.
No
So what does
kidding.
that force me to do? It's forced me to have a regular schedule of
Oh
walking her, and I've
yeah.
never
Oh
had a
wow.
regular schedule of walking dogs like that. I'd let them out on different times, and so that's I guess a skill. She's helped me hone that, and then you do something multiple times a day over years. We've had
Mm.
JoJo since 2019, so
Mm.
we're looking at 5 years now, and
Wow.
it's like, wow, I guess an animal can help me become more regimented, and I guess there's
Wow.
benefits in that. So,
Yeah.
uh, um,
Mm.
are there any things like that you've learned from having pets, that something they taught you, or something that was required of you that helped you change, or in meeting their need, you kind of learned something?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I think for the most part, like caring for the pets was something that kind of we all did together, or maybe my dad probably did the most of.
Okay.
Um, but at the same time, since we had such a big space, our pets really had a lot of freedom, and then they could be outside for quite a length of time, and we didn't have to worry about where they were, or if they would if they were getting into any kind of trouble. I think that they were really good about learning their boundaries and sticking to it, and then understanding that they didn't cross the road, unless we were with them, and then that it was they could explore the woods if they wanted to, and then of course, yeah, there were times where we would go outside and play with them, like throw the ball and frisbee and whatnot, and that was fun. But I did have one pet that kind of taught me a little bit about like the importance of preparing for pets,
Hmm.
especially when you're with dogs and cats. And then in my situation, where they're pretty easy to take care of, my sister then somehow she came across an iguana that
Oh, wow.
someone needed help taking care of, or couldn't take care of it, and asked if I wanted it, and I happened to be in the very fortunate position of working at the public library at that time and working in the
Oh.
children's section. And then I just happened to mention the one librarian, say, I'm really excited about this iguana that I'm getting. And she's like stay right there. And she walked over to the pet care area and got me like two or three books on caring for iguanas. And she's like, here,
Wow.
take a look at these and take these with you. And I was like, wow, thank you so much. Um, but and then they're so different from dogs and pets, and cats. They don't need so much, daily care, because they're not as active, and so it was always like concerning at the very beginning, thinking it's not eating. Why isn't it eating today? Is it gained enough? Is it okay? And then my getting from this small iguana to my dream that I cooked up in my mind of having this big iguana that's walking around the house, um, wasn't being realized as with speedily enough as I hoped it
Mm.
would, and I knew that in a bit I would be going to school, and then so we decided, which was also another important lesson, that maybe this pet isn't for me at this moment, and instead of you know, thinking, well, it's just a pet, it's just an iguana, doesn't really have a personality, to it, we found a pet shop, a place that was happy to have it and said
Nice.
that they would willingly take it. And of course, we didn't need, we got it. We were more than happy to just hand it over to them. And then, they could, keep it and then, sell it to another person who hopefully was, had in the right mindset and ready
Mm.
to take on an iguana.
Yes.
So yeah, that's just so important to know that, it might not be that you have the right pet at that time, but it's important to be responsible with how to, find a new home or a new way for that pet to still live their life, as they are. And I was glad that those were two important lessons. I think that not major lessons, but glad that I had that experience in my life.
Wow, that's great. And I like that you f- were able to find a good way to set the iguana up to be rehomed and to find a new
Mm-hmm.
place to live,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but that you contributed to it. You had that experience of learning, and you got those resources, and but then you were able to hand off. That's great. And it reminds me a little bit of a situation that Katie and I are in right now. I don't have any pictures to go with this at the moment, but there was a neighborhood cat that had kittens, and we helped um, get homes for all those kittens.
Mm-hmm.
And then another neighborhood cat had kittens,
Oh
separate,
no.
different cat, and so we helped get homes for those cats. And then this first neighborhood cat had another round of kittens,
Oh no.
and so finally we're like, after a while you get saturated, like there's nobody else to take um, these kittens. So Kate and I have been caring for them in our garage, and we're like, we've
Mm.
got to find a home for these kittens.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, like what we found a home for one of them, but then finally we connected with this place in Medina, and this upcoming week we're going to be taking them there. And we knew
Mm-hmm.
that the kittens needed to have time to socialize and be with their mom till
Mm-hmm.
they were old enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I think around 10 weeks, after having plenty of
Mm-hmm.
time, we introduced them to slowly to our family members, and then when they were older, to our dog, just very, very for short little spurts, and
Mm-hmm.
they did real well. And so they got these
Mm.
skills, that
Yeah. Yeah.
and now they're ready. But this place is going to take them. They said it's perfect at that young age. We'll find homes for
Oh
them,
really?
and
Oh, that's
and
great.
so it's a similar story to the iguana, where
Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't personally take on, caring for the animal into the future indefinitely, but you could find a way to set it off,
Yeah.
set to have it in a good position to be find a new home. So, yeah, but that's been quite an experience. Kudos to my wife Katie for all the work she's
Oh
put
yeah.
into. She's done
Oh,
the lion's share of
phew.
almost everything. I mean, pretty much. I should just say everything with these cats, because
Everything.
we've
Yeah.
helped some, but it's been her who's really
Oh yeah.
driven the process. And um,
Mm-hmm.
but we talked with the owner of this one neighborhood cat who had this most recent round of kittens, and so we're going to adopt her and have her as our own, and have her as an indoor
Oh.
outdoor cat. Like so,
Oh
so we
yeah.
we did take her in to get spayed, so that
Mm-hmm.
we can't
You have to
rehome any
find
more
any more. Yeah.
litters of kittens. But yeah, so her name is Mojo, and so she's
Oh,
she's
okay.
She's a real fun cat. She's kind of like Buddy. She's very cuddly,
Oh,
but fierce as a hunter, and
oh,
she'll
really?
she'll
Oh,
bring
dear.
chipmunks
Oh,
and put them on her front doorstep. I'm like,
yeah, right. Oh,
what?
she's just happy to be there. Yeah,
She's
it's a
happy to be there.
present.
We're
Yeah.
like, okay,
Uh-huh.
I get,
Uh,
but anyway, but if I may,
mm.
I just wanted to go on a real brief little counterpoint journey to um the love of dogs segment to say, um, on the other hand, here are a few pictures of lovely experiences with cats,
Yeah.
and then maybe we could draw things to a close if
Hmm.
that sounds good. So
Yep.
so we are still dog people. I'm gonna be a dog person for life, but if there's ever something that would tempt me a little bit to
Yeah.
stray from that path, here's what it would be. Um, so this is a picture of our first cat that Katie and I had together as a
Oh,
married
wow.
couple. Her name was Addie. And
Oh,
the kids decorated her with some red and blue beads here, but she has,
that's
gray
mine. Yeah.
and black and stripes on her coat, and she's
Hmm.
real pretty. But she was not very social with her kids. Like she was fine with
Mm,
Katie and fine
hmm.
with me, but
Hmm.
sometimes she would kind of bat at our kids or
Oh,
hiss,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
so not the best, um, childhood cat
Hmm.
pet,
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe in general. But that didn't deter our kids. They continued to love
Good.
on her and try and
Oh,
try. And she,
yeah.
kind of made peace with it to an extent,
Hmm.
but then would spend
Hmm.
a lot of time in
Hmm.
other rooms, like in the basement or the attic. She'd get away
Uh-huh.
sometimes on her own. But
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but after her, that's where the magic
Mm.
began to happen. So
Oh.
well, I had to throw this in. This is her sleeping. For some reason, she had this quirk where she would sleep head down, head first on the
Oh.
sofa, and she put her head straight down, like I mean, bury it in the sofa. So
Oh,
that's how
man.
she preferred to
Oh,
sleep.
wow.
I've never seen that before, so I just had to put that in as a quirk from our cat Addie. But here's where the magic began to
Oh,
happen.
yeah.
One of our family friends, the Roars,
Hmm.
uh, had a litter of ragdoll kittens. And
Mm.
for our listeners, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this breed, but ragdolls are known to be very docile. And so if you
Oh,
hold
yeah.
them, they'll go limp in your arms, and you can hold them like you would almost like a ragdoll toy. I think that's partly how they get their name.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
this is Ribbon, and this
Oh,
kitten is
yeah.
really, of all of our family members, it's Aubrey's, our middle child's favorite.
Okay. Oh,
She kind
yeah.
of took her under her wing when we first brought her in.
Oh,
She named her Ribbon,
okay.
um, and so these rag dolls are just lovely. Ribbon is very soft. She has this beautiful white, almost going into like a tan, like very light tan fur, and then these accents with the dark. They call this coat a seal. I think a seal point as a type
Oh.
of rag doll, and
Huh.
we just were, and she has these beautiful blue eyes, and
Yeah. Oh,
this
yeah.
is her with some cool glasses on, and
Oh,
the
yeah. Oh,
kids
wow.
post that once, and she's just a real delight to have around. But
Mhm.
um here they are dressing her up with the bow on her head. They're just having so much fun with her, um and a hat, lots of lots of outfits here, and this one is a glorious pose with her stretched out
Mm,
like
mhm,
on the bed. But
mhm.
um but the true magic of the rag dolls came even beyond Ribbon when we
Oh,
got
dear.
this cat, Bam Bam Rose
Uh,
is what we call him. And he's called a
Oh,
blue
yeah.
mitted rag doll. He has um,
Ah.
white fur, but you can see why his hands there,
Uh-huh.
his little front paws, it almost looks like he's
Uh-huh.
wearing mittens, like these
Oh,
two
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
gray
yeah, yeah.
mittens, and then he has accents on
Mm-hmm.
his ears and his tail. And
Mm.
he is like a dog cat. Uh, I just can't believe how social he is. People come in the house and he greets them and he hangs
Oh.
around when we do stuff together, just
Oh,
like our
wow.
dog does. He spends
Mm.
more time with our dog than with the other cat. And he's just very, I know he defies categories for me. So if I say
Sure,
I'm
sure,
a
sure,
dog
sure, sure.
person, but I love
Mm.
cats, but he behaves like a dog, but he's a cat. I don't know. My brain breaks. I don't
I
know how to
know what
flip
to
my,
do. Yeah, what do I do? How do
but
I process this? Yeah.
but anyway, so we've had tremendous experience with these ragdolls, and
Mm.
especially the second ragdoll, Bam Bam. And so I just want
Mm.
to put that out there is um, another reason that I'm tempted at times to
Oh,
say
oh, yeah.
my love for cats is reaching the dog level.
Mm, mm, mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Are
wow.
there any other thoughts or comments or questions that you have before we close our
Yeah,
episode?
I thought maybe one quick question I think maybe we can
Yeah.
get through is about names.
Oh yeah.
Um I think I'm not sure if I've mentioned before, but here in Japan, it's interesting. It's so interesting to think about different cultures and names that they give for pets. So, like a lot of pets here in Japan are named after food, like
Oh,
Momo for Peach. Our neighbor has two dogs that one is Momo, which is Peach, and the other one's Cookie.
oh,
And there will be pets named Marron, which is French for chestnut, and things like that. But Calvin actually, he got his name. We were sitting around the Christmas tree and trying to think of a good name, and he was almost Conrad for Conrad
wow.
Graeber.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
Wow. Good
then and
Anabaptist Reformation figure.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
and then it just popped into my mind. I thought because it's good and I really liked it and I was ready to go along with it. But then I thought another another figure in church history. What about Calvin, as in
Yeah.
John Calvin? And then and my everyone thought, oh, Calvin. Yes, it's
Yeah.
very good. It really fits. And then that's how we came with Calvin. And then it was funny that Calvin went to puppy kindergarten, and one of the other people there who also worked in the same building with my mom, she said, she said, she was there with her dog, and she said, I'll never forget your dog's name because my son's name is Calvin. So it's interesting how sometimes we
Yes.
tend to pick human names
Oh, yeah.
for pets, and it would be probably be considered a little bit odd if I'm in Japan and I say, Shinosuke, or you know, Suzuko, and then people are like, why are you calling your pet by that name?
Oh, how interesting.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but
Uh,
you in your case, you have a Mojo and you have a Jojo and you have a Bam Bam.
yes.
How is it that you came up with some of these names for your pets?
Okay. I love that question. So,
Mm-hmm.
some of our pets have like a certain logic, and some of them were kind of
Mm-hmm.
happy accidents. So,
Okay. Oh,
so
nice.
uh, my our dog Jojo.
Uh-huh.
I had a really good childhood friend, and I've talked about him on our podcast before, named Joe, or
Oh,
Joseph was his
yeah.
full name.
Uh-huh.
And we were able to interview his brother for a couple of our episodes.
Oh, yes.
So anyway, I thought, that I tucked that away. It's like that's a name I would love. Maybe if we have another boy or something, a
Mm.
name in honor of my
Uh-huh.
friend. And but
Mm.
after our third child was ended up being a girl, we're like,
Mm.
okay, we had a name Hannah for her, and that was great. Um, but I was like, I wonder if they'll ever have an opportunity to for the name Joseph,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and so I thought, well, I'm getting a collie. This
Oh,
is a
back from your
childhood back from my
childhood.
childhood, and he was a
Uh-huh.
good childhood friend. Maybe I'll name this collie Joseph, in honor of my friend, and
Uh-huh.
but we ended up when we contacted the breeder, the type of collie we were looking for, that it ended up they had a girl instead of a boy.
Okay.
Like they had boys, they had the blue merle type of coat, which
Oh.
for collies is a real pretty mix of gray and white, and
Ooh, wow.
but we wanted more the type that I had grown up with,
Oh,
the
yeah.
the the
Mm-hmm.
the tan type
Mm-hmm.
of rough coat. And so we went with the girl. So I thought, okay, can't call her Joseph. I mean,
No.
Josephine. No, not Josephine. Jojo, I guess is, yeah, because I've seen Jojo as a
Oh.
female name
Yeah, yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah,
There
yeah,
was a
yeah.
realtor when we were buying our home. There was a Jojo,
Mm-hmm.
and so we thought, oh, okay. So
Oh.
so that's how we got to Jojo. So that one
Oh,
had a
nice.
long,
Oh, yeah.
reasoned out trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
But for Bam Bam, so we just something about the name Bam Bam, the sound tickled our fancy.
It's nice.
Like yeah, just kind of funny, two-word
Mm-hmm.
repeat. I mean, JoJo's that
Mm-hmm.
way too. JoJo,
Mm-hmm.
Bam Bam. And but then we saw this rag doll that we really liked, and we contacted the breeder, and we actually put a down payment, but then there ended up being a medical issue with that rag doll, and so we
Oh.
couldn't adopt him
Yeah.
or bring him home. And so we had named him Bam Bam, and we thought, oh,
Mm-hmm.
like I guess we can't use that name because that was just for him. So
Mm-hmm.
we got the
Mm-hmm.
second ragdoll opportunity. And so with what we thought, oh, we'll call him Yoshi because Katie and I really love
Oh,
the
yeah.
character Yoshi from the
Uh-huh.
Mario games.
Uh-huh.
And so we brought him home, And just the more we watched him play, we're like, he doesn't feel like Yoshi. He feels like a Bam Bam.
Oh, nice.
And then it we just started calling him Bam Bam. And then at one point, like somebody had decorated him up. I had a few pictures of that earlier with
Uh-huh.
like,
Uh-huh.
jewelry or like
Yeah.
a necklace or something. And we just the name Rose came as like a compliment to make him like cutesy sounding.
Oh
So
yeah.
then it
Oh yeah.
stuck and now we just call him Bam Bam Rose. Like it just fit a happy accident.
Oh
So
yeah.
but one other thing I'll say, and this is the final thing because I've been going on and on here, is our first cat, Addie.
Oh
It just
yeah.
so happens that our daughter's best friend over the years, her name is Addie. And,
Oh
and and we had
really?
had this pet named Addie, and then this other Addie came into our life. So it is kind of funny when you give a pet a human name, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And
Mm-hmm.
that name yeah, I'm trying to think how we found that name. Um, it m- I think we knew an Addie in college,
No
and we just like
way.
the sound of that. I
Yeah,
know
it is
sometimes
good.
Adelaide, Australia
Oh
maybe,
yeah.
or
Mm-hmm.
is it Scotland? Wait, which one? Or both?
Probably both.
Both, yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, some names you inherit, like our dogs Ginger and Cheyenne, those names were given before we
Yeah.
adopted them, and some
Mm-hmm.
names you come up with. I think Addie's original name when we adopted her was Trisket, and we renamed her to Addie. And then
Oh,
some are
okay.
accidents and some are real reason, but
Yeah. Oh
it was
yeah.
fun to talk about those. So thank you, Barney, for that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before we close our
It's
time?
it has for sure been a wonderful and fulfilling time, and I very much liked sharing pictures and seeing your photos as well, especially with all um, the dress up for the cats.
We've done a little bit with our dogs too, particularly Jojo. We got a costume for her that had this wig of like strawberry blonde hair and like a green hat, and it was hilarious. But I didn't find the pictures for that. But so it
Right.
is so fun to dress up animals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, thank you, Barney, and it was so fun to see your pictures too, and to see that beautiful photo of Calvin, and just to realize how special he was to you and your family. And we want to thank our listeners for joining in as we went on this trip down memory lane and reflected on our pets. And we hope that you too have a lot of great stories related to the pets in your lives. And hopefully, something we shared today resonated with you. And we look forward to connecting again in the future. And until next time, goodbye.